Hello and welcome to this Bigfoot update video. As some of you know, I have been using the BFRO dataset and the R programming language to produce maps, and in the past I've looked at time periods so you can see how Bigfoot sightings change over time, and also looked at the seasonality, where is Bigfoot observed in January, February, March and so on. Now of course the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organisation, the BFRO, their data set is only going to have those sightings that have been reported, so there could be a lot of sightings elsewhere. So I guess we would see it as a sample of that overall Bigfoot sightings population. But nevertheless, it's quite a big database. It's got about 3,500 sightings in it. A few days ago I was just dusting off my code really, because I wanted to use some UK Bigfoot data from Deborah Hadswell, and I was looking at the overall map that I had, and I realized that I'm sure there's like an overall view that I haven't shared before. So what I've got is data set with all the Bigfoot sightings that are in the BFRO data set, which go back to the 19th century. Actually, there's a few in the 19th century. So this is grouping all of the data together, including Class A, B and C sightings. And just to keep everything simple and consistent throughout, I've put all the different sightings, the A's, B's and C's, they're all the same size. And so the idea is that we can look down on the map, and one of the really good features of R is that you can make each individual circle slightly transparent. And so where you get lots of sightings, it starts to become very bright and opaque, and then elsewhere it's less bright. Let's go to the first map. So here it is, and I think this map is really kind of useful because you're looking down on not the whole world, but you're looking down on quite a wide area, and it's very clear and absolutely fine that the BFRO data, the scope of it is United States. It's very clear looking down on this view that there is a pattern. Yeah, there's definitely structure in this data. There are places like Florida, southeast, and Washington up in the northwest where, you know, the sightings are very dense. And there are other areas where there are fewer sightings. And it's also kind of interesting to see, I think, some of the observations going up towards Canada. So zooming in a little, and you start to see exactly where the most dense areas are now. And so moving on to the next map, you start to see where the really dense areas are. And I think that there are 4 very bright spots, which are here, 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 and here. So what I've done is I want to look at all 4 of those areas in 4 separate videos. And in this one, I'm going to zoom into Washington. And I've already made a decision about where to center the map. So the whole map that we've been looking at so far has already been centered on a particular location where there's, I wouldn't say a large number of sightings. There's actually 7 sightings, but in a very small space, so that they show up very bright in that Washington area. So as we go through now, we're starting to zoom in, and we can definitely see a bright area just to the south of Seattle. And I think now we're actually going to zoom into the very bright area that's on the E of Seattle, and there it is, very dense. It's not the most dense area. There are maybe 2 or 3 on here that look quite dense, but certainly seem to be quite a few sightings in a very small space. So continuing to zoom in now, we can see that this area, this island, whatever it is to the west of Redmond, to the south of Whidbey Island, to the southwest of Everett, and I think that the area of water to the east might be Puget Sound. I think that comes up in a minute. So as we get closer now, we can start to see we have Bainbridge Island to the south, and starting to get a lot more detail now. We can still see Bainbridge Island, but we can see Suquamish, Indianola and Kingston, and the 7 sightings together are between the marker between the word Kingston and Indianola. And zooming in closer now, and we start to see that there's a forested area, and 4 of the sightings are clustered around that forested area. So I don't know if you're joining, if you're with me on this, but I'm getting pretty excited. And so zooming in, and we can start to see some road names now. And if you're enjoying the video so far, and if you're interested in seeing more Bigfoot data, please like and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, then please like the video, and I'll continue to do the rest in the series. I'm actually going to do, I think the next one is going to be Salt Fork, which is something that I got a tip off from another YouTuber who commented on one of my videos to say that Salt Fork is very active, and I've already started doing the work on it. And as you zoom in, it's kind of similar to this, but with more observations. So Salt Fork is particularly exciting because I'm going on a road trip soon, and I'm going to be going through Ohio, but that's for a future video. So here we are, and we can start to see some road names. S Kingston Road NE, Indianola Road NE, and quite soon we're going to be able to go onto Google Maps and look on there as well. So we now have that we know that it's North Kitsap Heritage Park, that I think is probably the name for the whole wooded area there from what I've been able to gather. And we also have the White Horse Golf Club, so I'm hoping we get some White Horse Golf Club members writing under the video and talking about their Bigfoot experiences. So yeah, the White Horse Golf Club seems to be right in the middle of Bigfoot Forest, and we've got certainly 2 of the sightings that are within that wooded area, and another 3 that are really quite nearby. Actually, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 that you can see on here. One of them's actually quite a long way from North Kitsap Heritage Park. Okay, so zooming in even further now, and we can even see, what is that? Sunridge Way, Apollo Drive, and keep in mind that one just to the east of Apollo Drive, which is the sort of southernmost forest observation. Okay, what I can do now is I can run some code that just restricts to a very small area and attempt to subset the data. So what we get here, looking at this map, you can see that I've excluded everything else, and now all we've got in our data is those 7 observations that are on that island. And then we can look at the detail, we can look at the data. This is a bit of a summary, there's more information for each field, but I think I was most interested in, okay, so we've got report number, and then we've got, well, what was it? We can see the class and the year. Now it turns out that the year that's attached to this data set is the reported year. So actually I've got a feeling that 7441, the top one, actually happened in something like 1996. We might see that in a minute. So we have this forestry worker has many encounters with Bigfoot, and it's a class A. We've got 4 class A's, 3 class B's, and a range of reported years, but not too crazy. It's not sort of spread out over 50 years. So, you know, we've got people at least coming onto the database between 2000 and 2011 and saying, you know, I heard or I saw something. And for example, driver notices a tall dark figure behind a tree near Kingston. Jefferson Head encounter by community service group. Wilderness guide in Indianola observes a large bipedal subject while hunting. Late night sighting by motorists, the old classic was that Bigfoot running across the road. But this forestry worker has many encounters with Bigfoot. I'm going to zoom in on that one now. Here I'm just showing how it's relatively easy now to go to Google Maps and zoom in on the same area and come up with similar information. And then the one really cool thing that happens is of course you can go to satellite view and you can have a look at the terrain. So next we can run some code which just filters so that we've got just that report, the 7441, forest worker has many encounters with Bigfoot. And we find now, by going back to the map, with instead of having like the whole database, now we've just got that one row, that 7441, and we can see that it is that observation to the south of this forested area and to the east of Apollo Drive. Okay, and the other thing that we can do, we can get the coordinates, the latitude and longitude, and then once we've got that, we can then go to Google Earth. We can put a pin in the map. So now we're looking at Google Earth, and here are two pictures of where this was reported. But these forestry workers, they were working here for a period of time, and they had multiple experiences. So we're not just talking about one location. I think we're probably talking about around this area. And I thought this was pretty cool. I wasn't able to do a street view from this exact location, but I was able to do a street view from the streets over to the west. So obviously there are some roads over to the west of where that observation was, and in fact, so where we're looking here, I believe that we're looking up to north. So we're looking up the road here is due north, and the forest is to our east, and the Bigfoot sightings were in the woodland to the east of here. So actually now we can turn round to the east, and we're now looking up through a house into the woodland where that Bigfoot activity took place, moving a bit further up the road now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is into the BFRO database, and we can click through and we can get to the full story. So I'm now going to pick that up, and as I go through the story, I'm going to just flash up some Google Maps, just moving around on Google Maps, and also some photos which I've picked up off Google Images, which should all be from this forest, from the forest in question. Okay, so we have year 1997, season summer. Actually, let's start at the top. Report number 7441, Class A. Submitted by witness on Sunday, the 23rd of November 2003. That differs slightly from the database, from the raw data that we have, which has a timestamp in it, which says 2004. Forest worker has many encounters with Bigfoot. Year 1997, season summer, month July. 25th of July 1997. Washington, Kitsap County. Nearest town, South Kingston. Nearest road, South Kingston. My boss and I work in forestry. We're in the field almost every day. We were working in this remote part of an Indian reservation, forested allotment. We were resurveying property lines and getting ready for a timber harvest. Well, this day we were resurveying the south side of this allotment, heading east. We were measuring every 100 feet for a distance of 1,320 feet. At approximately 11 a.m, we kept hearing something following us, either behind or to our left or right. It stayed approximately 100 to 250 feet away from us. There was this stench, real heavy odour that we kept smelling near us. I kept blaming my boss that he had crapped in his pants, and he kept accusing me of doing the same. He said, "There's only two of us out here, and I know I didn't do it." Well, anyway, we were taking a break from hacking through the brush with our machete, and we were leaning up against this 200 plus old growth, blown down fir tree. I took a cigarette out and lit up, and then there was this branch or twigs breaking, like something large walking through the underbrush, about 120 feet away. I couldn't find any rocks to throw in that direction, but found a U-shaped piece of wood that I threw near the spot where we heard the sounds. Take note of the piece of U-shaped wood, because in another encounter, a few years later, and only a couple of months ago, I had the same piece thrown at me. It got quiet. Like I said, it was kind of cloudy and dark under the tree canopy. The noise came from the other side of this large salmonberry bushes, and then all of a sudden the clouds broke open and allowed some daylight through behind the bushes, about 10 feet. So that the four creatures that were watching us, you could see their shadow. I told my boss Mike to take a look in that direction, but because of his bad eyesight, he couldn't see that well. There were two really big adult males, one skinny tall female with shoulder-length hair, and she had a bad hump on her back. Her breasts were like a really old woman, and she kept wringing her hands together as she was speaking to the other males. There was a child to her left that stood about 6 feet tall, was dwarfed by the 3 larger adult creatures. The 2 males stood still motionless. They watched me and did not talk much to the female that was doing most of the talking in her own dialect. The males seemed to motion to her to keep quiet. Then the clouds had covered up the rays of light and it got dark again. My boss Mike kinda had seen the shadows but tried to convince me it was his boss Ken and some secretaries that he brought into the woods, as sometimes he does. Right after that, they kept following us and my boss Mike got spooked and said, let's get out of here and come back next week to finish our survey. The animals were almost 8 feet, except the child was 6 feet tall. They were covered in fur or hair, except for around their eyes and nose, parts of their cheeks. One thing I did notice was I did not see any ears on their head. The 2 large males were really huge, large broad shoulders. The female was tall, thin, with a large hump on her back between her shoulder blades. Her breasts sagged near her waist. Have had several encounters. The one I had in June 2000 made it to the local newspaper. Strange dialect, sounded like Salish tribal language, except for when they started to panic. They sounded like monkey or ape type sounds. Whistles, stomping, lots of branch or tree snapping in half. One time I heard a loud bog type howl and pounding on what sounded like a tree. Have not been back to the spot where they stood at, but I have had a few Sasquatch trackers back there. Fred Bradshaw, Cliff Crook, Patrick Julian, Richard Grovers, Derek Randall, Richard Knoll are just a few of the trackers that have seen the site or area. They have even pointed out places where the creatures have sat down on the hillside. I have had other, more recent encounters with them. I even had a plaster cast of one footprint. 1:30 to 3:30 p.m, hot, humid, overcast, cloudy with sun breaks. Swamp and numerous small creeks that empty into the Puget Sound. The Puget Sound is approximately 1 mile south. Wooded, second growth and old growth trees of Douglas fir tree plantations, different age class. There is approximately 900 plus acres, this area, with farmhouses, residential homes surrounding a forested area. So I hope you enjoyed the whole kind of experience of seeing from very high up, looking at the BFRO data and seeing how structured and really how convincing it is, and then zooming into Washington, one of the more dense areas, and then going all the way down to somewhere where there are 7 sightings all overlaying each other in a very small space, probably because it's on an island, and then being able to hear just one of those stories. So, I hope you enjoyed that. If you're new and you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back soon with another Bigfoot video. Thank you very much.